Game 7. That was pretty anticlimactic. I guess the schedule really took a toll. Vegas took a toll on Vancouver. I mean, we were seeing in the last game that they looked like they were wearing each other out. But Vegas just had the talent to keep pushing, whereas Vancouver was just completely out of gas. Vegas came out storming. For most of the game, they were storming. But that initial 10 minutes, that was like Game 7 home game. That was like you actually had the crowd behind you. They were terrifying. The Canucks could not get out of their zone. Vegas was changing on the fly. That puck was just going in and in. The Canucks, once again, were back on their heels, exhausted. All they were able to do was just chip it out. And when you do that, nothing's going to happen. I was thinking throughout the series, and most series, I always wonder, what is that exactly? I'm not a big hockey strategic master or anything. I just watch the games, and I think it's pretty obvious if you can't control the puck in your own zone, even to get a line change and kind of reset, if you are giving them the puck under what looks to me little duress, I mean, that's the whole point of the game. It's not like you made it to the neutral zone and gave it up. It's not like you dumped it in and weren't able to retrieve it. You're giving it up in your zone. You're playing as far back on your heels as possible. What does that come down to? Is that just a talent thing? Does that just mean we need defensemen that can move the puck faster, that can get a faster pass out? Is it, and like to argue that point, I think Myers can skate pretty well sometimes, and he does have a good pass, and he does have good poise, but he gets gassed pretty quick, and maybe that's because he was coming back from injury, or that's just him, where he tantalizes you with what he could have done. And when he won that Calder Trophy, and when he just took the league by storm, this big guy that can move, could be the next Chara. Turns out that, at least in this playoffs anyway, when he was healthy, he's useful in the first part of his shift. And if he can't get it out, he's not going to chase it down. He's going to park in front of the net. And that's not going to help him get it out. Stetcher can skate and he can move, but he just doesn't have that high level skill. He has like the fight and the compete and the heart and whatever. He has the intangibles to be a decent third pairing guy, but sometimes he struggles to get it out. Tanev does a lot of things well, but can be kind of slow. Edler, they're slower, they're older. Other than Hughes, Vandenberg can get a good pass out. So it could be the defense, just sort of a lack of talent and mobility. Is it a coaching thing? Because it seems like if you looked at all those plays, they kind of all went down the same way, where puck would be in, Vegas would line up, and they just work those boards, and they knew that they pressured somebody down low, the defenseman was going to just throw it up the boards. The Canucks forwards were in the middle of the ice instead of being down low against the wall where they could grab it. Vegas played the walls. They played it like a game of Rocket League, where they knew that the puck had to go along those walls, and the Canucks weren't making any passes through the center ice, probably because they were so hemmed in, they weren't going to take any risky center ice passes. Any Lucas Sabiza special pizzas. So I don't know, maybe there's some people that are a little more knowledgeable, or probably a lot more knowledgeable at hockey strategy out there, that can leave something in the comments. What do you think? Is it just defensive talent? That would make sense. If it's a coaching strategy thing, then I'm pretty worried, because I feel like the Canucks are going to be pretty committed to Travis Green. I think he took the team farther than anyone thought they were going to do. I think him and Benning somehow executed on this plan that the owners had of, let's just stay competitive and still get better. Can you do that while trading away your draft picks? And Benning somehow managed it, and Travis Green somehow managed it, and this team did. Now, oh my God, it would be my worst nightmare if, I can't even remember the guy's name, but when he left, he was the Jim Benning's right-hand man, scouting guy. If he left, and could you just imagine if he was the one that said, yeah, oh, for sure, take Hughes in the spot, take Patterson in the spot, Besser late. Yeah. Demko, take him. He's got the two bum hips. Take him. Hopefully it was Benning. I mean, that's the story we heard on Benning when he was in Boston, was that the guy was their draft master and he was a fantastic assistant GM. But I think there's this rule, well, it's a theory that you will be successful in your job and you will be promoted until you fail. And then you will gradually sink back down, hopefully, to where you can succeed again. And I was kind of feeling that when Benning first came to the Canucks, and you would see the people he would sign and the trades he was making, and you wondered, were you the greatest assistant GM and maybe struggling to be a GM. But anyways, Game 7. I mean, what else is there to say? The Canucks basically tried to play the rope-a-dope. If you don't know the rope-a-dope, that's what Muhammad Ali used against a younger, stronger George Foreman late in Muhammad Ali's career, where he just let Foreman exhaust himself punching, and Ali just absorbed the punishment, ducked, weaved, dodged, and then was able to, I don't know if he knocked him out, but he beat him in the end in the rumble in the jungle. And it was this crazy strategy. It's like something out of a Rocky movie. But that doesn't work in hockey. Because like Bieksa was saying in the intermission, man, he's so good. Bieksa is so smooth, has so much personality. He's not stumbling over his words. He's like a young Don Cherry that actually, at least at this point, is... I mean, I'm sure Don Cherry had more strategy when he was talking about his breakdowns, and then kind of became a parody or a caricature of himself. I still always enjoyed him. But I think, yeah, Bieksa, and especially with Ron McLean, they seem to have great chemistry. Anyways, what Bieksa was saying is that it's really tiring to play in your own end. I mean, he's a defenseman. He's done it, and he played recently, so... I think that's what happened. They just got exhausted. Although you could see that, although Vegas was like terrifying for those opening 10 minutes, they did get to a point where they were letting their foot off the gas, and they would sort of take a breather. The Canucks would try to get back into it, and then Vegas would just double down and push even harder. Then Vegas takes a major penalty, and you're thinking, 2 years in a row, you've let a team crawl back to get a Game 7 after being up 3-1. You take a major penalty in that Game 7, and this was their chance, but the Canucks just couldn't muster anything. Leonard made a few good saves throughout this game, especially like a killer one on Brock, but they just had nothing. And halfway through that major penalty, you were getting the feeling that this is over. The Canucks just don't have it in them anymore. They're done, and Vegas has decided they're not going to lose, no matter what. And when Miller, it's such a heartbreaker that Miller took that minor penalty, because, and actually he got away with another one. There was that one where Stetcher got called for interference or something, and it was a really cheeky slew foot from Miller, and eventually they corrected it, gave it to him. So he ended up with 2 minors if that was this game. And I'm doing this recording a couple days after the Game 7 because I just was stunned. It was just such a big letdown after seeing them fight back so much. I mean, I would never expect them to get to the 3rd round, but you get to Game 7, and Demko still gave them a chance. Demko did everything he could for the last 3 games. It was insanity. I watched the last 2 games mostly just with my jaw dropped at what Demko was doing. It was like watching a horror movie in a good way, where everything they threw at him, he stopped. It would be like, he was like the Terminator in Terminator 1, where he was just this unstoppable force, and didn't matter what Vegas threw at him. Shotguns, machine guns, one-timers, a million slot chances, rebounds, breakaways, odd man rushes. They could shoot a cannon at him, and he would just... The way he can move across the crease, stay square, control his rebounds, and even when he is flat on his back, to have the wherewithal. It kind of reminded me of Hasek in some ways, less scrambly, but it just felt like nothing was going to get through. And he gave his team a chance, and they couldn't score 1 goal, even with a 5-minute major power play. It's funny, last game I said Vegas probably isn't going to want to get into any fights because their whole team is too valuable. Everyone on the team except for Reeves, they don't want to have in the box. And Reeves ends up with the 5-minute and a game. And Chandler Bing got moved up to one of the top 6 lines. And they reunited that Marchessault, Riley Smith, and Carlson. The super Vegas line of misfits that found their footing here. Those guys were just so dangerous. They're such a dangerous team. They just come at you again and again and again. All their defensemen can move the puck. Their forecheck is ridiculous. Their strategy is impeccable. The defense is impregnable. Actually, the defense is pregnable, very pregnable. Be careful. You get her pregnant. And that was the game. What else is there to say? Demko, again, was unbelievable. Back-to-back games. 3 playoff games in a row after not playing for 5-6 months. This is going to make the offseason really difficult. What do you do? What do you do if you're betting? And now Markstrom's a UFA? This is crazy. I'm going to put out a couple other videos after this about kind of grading the roster for what they did in the playoffs, and then looking forward to seeing what kind of roster is going to win the Stanley Cup with this young core. Who should stay? Who should go? How can Benning put this together? Game 7, kind of a letdown. Kind of reminded me of the Boston final, where the games that the Canucks lost, they just lost immediately and weren't even fun to watch. It wasn't even, like, it's one thing to lose a nail-biter like the 94 Canucks or the previous Canuck runs where they were getting stymied by Chicago. But to just go in there and feel like, I guess you don't even have a chance to win this. Although with Demko keeping it shut out, so locked down, it did feel like there was. But when Miller took that late penalty, it was over. I mean, Theodore just put it in so quick. Like Jeff Patterson said, what did he say? The only Vegas night to score in Demko? Not a great game, but probably an inevitability and an interesting result of the bubble experiment and the condensed schedule, the back-to-back games, seeing if that fatigue is still going to be there even without the airline travel. I mean, even if you got to get in a plane and move around and change hotels and fly across the country, seems so surreal to think that now. It's still a grind to play those games back-to-back. I'm sure the players would have gladly had one rest day in the middle, even if it meant they had to go to a couple airports. I don't know. What did you guys think? I was proud of them after their run and filled with a lot of hope. You know, it wasn't too long ago, this roster had people like Michael Granlund on it. And look where they are now.